Hello, math virtuosos. Here we are with another installment of Mathematics with Mr. Sivadas, and we're going to work with trig identities here. First of all, we already talked about these, but the cosecant of x is just 1 over the sine of x. And the secant of x is 1 over the cosine of x. And the cotangent of x is 1 over the tangent x. All right, so let's talk about, we have some interesting relationships with these. Let's take a unit circle. Wow, that looks pretty good. And this is theta, and this is the point xy. Well, we know that, and this is the length 1, we know that x squared plus y squared equals 1 squared. We know that because that's the equation of a circle. And we also know that x equals the cosine of theta, and y equals the sine of theta. So let's put these together. Let's plug this in here, and we've got the cosine of theta squared plus the sine of theta squared equals 1 squared, which is 1. Now, the way we're going to write this, we're going to write this a different way. We're going to write this cosine with a 2 here. This means it's the whole cosine of theta squared. This is not equal to the cosine of the angle squared. This is something different. And we're not going to get to this for quite a while. So the square goes between the cosine and the angle. So the cosine squared plus the sine squared theta equals 1. Or we tend to write it this way: the sine squared theta plus the cosine squared theta equals 1. This is our most important identity for putting our sines and cosines together in an equation. All right, so let's go over to the other board and we'll work with this some more. We're going to change this. Instead of the sine of theta, we're going to use the sine of x. It's not the xy on our Cartesian coordinate system. We're just going to use x representing the angle. So if we have the sine squared x plus the cosine squared x, this equals 1. We already know that. So now let's divide everything by the sine squared. So divide this by the sine squared. Divide this by the sine squared. I can split this up since I only have one denominator, sine squared x over the sine squared x plus the cosine squared x over the sine squared x equals, and this is the sine squared. This is, I'm going to write it this way, 1 over the sine x. This whole thing's squared. Same thing. So now, it's nice. These are the same, so they cancel. This is 1. And what is the cosine divided by the sine? That's the cotangent, but we're squared. So this is the cotangent squared x, and this is the cosecant. 1 over the sine is the cosecant, so it's now the cosecant squared x. Okay, so now we have another one that puts cosecants and cotangents together. So there's one last one we can do. Sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1. Let's divide everything by the cosine of x this time. Cosine squared x, cosine squared x, cosine squared x. I'm skipping this step, going right to here because it's going to give us the same thing. Now, the sine over the cosine is the tangent. So this is the tangent squared x, and cosine squared over cosine squared is just 1. And 1 over the cosine is the secant, so this is the secant squared x. All right, so we have these three main identities. Now I want to talk about even and odd functions. So if you remember, if f of negative x equals f of x, this is even. It's an even function. And if f of negative x equals negative f of x, this is odd. All right, so let's take a look at, first of all, let's look at the sine of x. The sine of x goes roughly like this. Oops. And it comes down like this. And here's -1, and here's 1. So if you notice right here at pi over 2, we have 1, but at negative pi over 2, we have -1. So the sine of negative pi over 2, which is -1, is negative the sine of pi over 2, which is +1. Negative the sine pi over 2. So it's odd. All right. Now, let's take a look at the cosine. And it's easiest to just use this graph we already have here. And just make this our axis. That's our cosine now. And so we're at 1. Oops. And down here we're at -1. So if I take, say, over here is, well, let's just do pi over 2 again. Pi over 2 and negative pi over 2. If we take the cosine of pi over 2, it's 0, but the negative cosine of pi over 2 is 0. So the cosine of negative pi over 2 is equal to the cosine pi over 2. So it's even. All right. So we have one thing left. We have the tangent. And what's nice is I don't have to graph the tangent because I already have the sine and cosine. The tangent of x equals the sine x over the cosine of x. The tangent of negative x, well, we know here that it's negative the sine x, and the cosine, this is the, well, I'll do it in 2 steps. Let's not skip a step here. This is negative x, and this is the cosine negative x. But the sine of negative x is negative the sine x, and the cosine of negative x is positive cosine of x. And what is that? That's negative the tangent of x. So the tangent of negative x is negative the tangent of x, so that this is also an odd function. All right, we'll see you in the next video.